What is up, everybody? It is your boy Farai. Thank you once again for tuning into another video, man. Shout out Notifications Squad. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, hopefully having a great weekend. It is Saturday today. This video is recorded on a Friday. But anyway, man, we're going to be answering some questions from the comments section. Since there's so many questions every day, I just can't answer everything, man. But yeah, let's get straight into it. So make sure to smash like as well as to subscribe. Comment any questions that you have, and I will be sure to find them eventually. So let's get into it. Flexi Music says, can you use Pro Tools as a secondary DAW? We'll love to see some source tutorials on it. Yeah, so I'm pretty much just finalizing a few things studio side before I fully jump over to Pro Tools for a while. I'm not going to be using Pro Tools like as my first DAW or like my main DAW, but more so just I'll do some tutorials on it and that kind of thing. I think it'll be fun. Definitely, I have been using Pro Tools for years, and I've just kind of given up on using it since I'm mostly using FL Studio to, you know, just record and mix things. So yeah, I'll do a few FL Studio tutorials. We can work on some routing, we can work on actually recording your vocals in it, we can do a few default chains, because I actually quite like the Pro Tools plugins that come default with Pro Tools. They sound really good to me. They're nice and clear cut. They haven't changed much over the years, meaning they sound really good. So yeah, we'll get into that, but FL Studio is still my main DAW because I just love FL Gang, man. Shout out the squad. Dex says, why you use compressor in stereo and not mono? Can you explain, please? Vocals should not be in mono. Yeah, so that is always an interesting question, man, especially since Waves give out their plugins in mono and stereo format. All right, so there's a lot of confusion around when mixing vocals. Should I use the mono? Should I use the stereo? Is it going to affect the sound? So the best way that I can break it down for you is that when you record, like right now I'm recording my voice, right? There is only one of my voice and there is only one of a microphone, right? Meaning that whatever's recorded into my recording software will be in mono. So it does not matter if I then apply a stereo compressor, because on the left channel and the right channel summed together make a mono signal, right? It just means that there's only one. So that means whatever's coming through FL Studio, and FL Studio's tracks are all actually in stereo. So when you have a mono sound, it doesn't make a difference, right? It just means that the left and right channel are filled up by the same information or signal per se. So when you apply a stereo reverb, then it'll change the mono sound into a stereo source, because you know you've got differences in left and right. You'd have to go and Google the difference between mono and stereo to fully understand, but the basics are that if you have a mono sound, for example a mono kick drum, and you put a stereo compressor on it, nothing will happen. But if you apply any sort of time-based effect, a flanger, a chorus, a reverb, anything that modulates the left and right channel, right, to create that perception of kind of things moving, it'll then turn into a stereo source. Okay, so again, just to finalize, if you have a mono signal going to a stereo compressor, it will not matter. If you have a stereo signal going to a mono compressor, that will sum the left and right channel together. So that is a no-no. So for example, if you have a stereo piano or a stereo beat and you apply a mono compressor on it, it's going to change the beat to mono. All right, it's going to sum it to mono. So that's not good, because then you'll obviously have your track in mono. So you know, just Google stereo mono. It is complicated, and Waves definitely have made it a bit more complicated. But I think it's also the DAWs that are complicated, because FL Studio's tracks are all stereo. You know, whereas Pro Tools, you have the choice of creating a stereo track or a mono track. So I guess that's where it really comes from. So hopefully that answers your question. Jaden Caban, hopefully I said your surname right, says, you're always dropping that fire. Can you make a video describing your pre-master? I'm real interested in it. Alright, so this is for everyone that use my template format, and these days you always see I have a pre-master track. So you have your master track and then your pre-master track. And the reason I always create a pre-master track is back from the days when I used to sell beats, okay, because it'll just be a lot easier to be able to hit export and then have one track as the pre-master, not have any effects on it, right? Because all the tracks in my session, all the drums, all the kicks, everything go into my pre-master track, and then the pre-master goes into the master track, right? So what does that mean? Is that I get the advantage of being able to control the level hitting the master track, right? So if I have been mixing way too loud and I'm too lazy to do proper gain staging, I can just drop the level of the pre-master track, right? Or I can turn it up even, right? You've got 6 dB of extra level in FL Studio on the fader. But most importantly, what I can then do is I can have a mastered version of the track with plugins on it, and then I can have a non-mastered version without having to export twice, right? So that kind of makes sense for me, because that way then when I am selling stems or something like that, I can then, you know, in the stem package, the person will find pre-master track, post-master track, and it's nice as an addition, you know. It's always nice to be able to do things that are going to set you apart from everyone else, because that way, if a client likes your beats and music, then the mixer will also like the fact that, you know, you're able to give them all these options, you know what I mean? So that's the reason I do it. I do it purely from a technical standpoint and just like an ease of use standpoint. It saves a bit of time, but yeah, it's nothing really special, just a premaster track. You can even add an analog emulation on it if you'd like to make it sound like an SSL, but it's really up to you. It's just an extra option. So yeah, man. Okay, PSILO says, I was gonna buy the preset, but you only accept PayPal. So we do have Stripe support on the Selfie web store, so if you are interested in purchasing some FL Studio presets, check the link in the description. Squad up, man, let's get it. Alright, Matt Smith says, hey Farai, is there a good free mic preamp emulator or one to purchase? I figured I would try that instead of buying a preamp. Thanks, bud. I bought it up from you. Shout out Matt Smith, man. All right, so that is a good question, and I think that it is even more important in today's era where we have really good, I wouldn't say low budget, but just entry-level audio interfaces, okay? Now, it always reaches a level where you might be recording with your Focusrite, let's say Scarlett, and you feel, damn, and I could probably get some more analog grit out of that preamp. So what makes these preamps beautiful firstly is that they are very neutral, okay? They don't have any mistakes in them. They don't dip in frequencies. They're very flat, and they are going to pretty much just bring out your microphone as your microphone sounds, okay? They're not going to add any character to your track. Now that's where you can add in a emulation. So either you could have a microphone preamp, right, an external one, or what you could do is you could use a preamp emulator, like for example the Bus Color 4, which is not a preamp emulator, but it's more so a console emulator, which is really good to use. So I recommend Bus Color 4. You drive the input, choose a color, right? It's going to add that analog emulation onto it, and then you're going to turn down the output, and then you're going to leave the plugin with the same level, right? Since you've adjusted the output, turn the input up, but you're going to leave the plugin with a bit more grit added to your vocal. So the best options I can recommend, because they're so easy to use and you can use them on Mac or Windows, is Bus Color 4, all right? Because it has lots of options of different console sounds, right? And then channel 4 or channel 7 actually by now is out. So those are two free plugins you can download from airwindows.com. Shout out Chris. And those are my personal recommendations. On top of that, what I would try use is the Yala compressor, which is an analog emulation of a compressor, of an Altair compressor, and that is also going to give your vocals some cool analog grit. So try those two things out. Definitely don't record them on your recording train. Do like I do, add your mic track, send that to a main vocal channel, add your autotune, and then add your processing on there, and it's going to work out great. Good question. Volto asks, I got a question. Whenever I put a compressor, in my case R compressor by Waves, behind my autotune, it sounds super weird, like if you would put a flanger on high settings on the vocals. Do you know why that happens? So I wouldn't know exactly, like if you're describing a flanger thing, I don't quite know what's going on, but I do know that in my experience recording all these years, I always add my autotune as the first thing before any EQ, before any compression, because I just want the autotune to read my voice as it is, tune my voice as it is, and then I can do all my processing without having to worry about that. For some reason, that's just always worked better for me. From a practical standpoint, for example, if you were to use an equalizer before autotune, it might react differently to the true tone that you were actually singing in, because now you've dipped away certain frequencies in your voice, meaning that, you know, your tone is not the same as when it was just dry. So that's the reason I use autotune as my first insert. I wouldn't exactly know why it would add a flangey sound to it, but definitely try my way. Add autotune first, and it shouldn't really be a problem. I really don't do my autotune second or third or whatever. I've seen people add it last, and that's not a good idea in my opinion, because, you know, you're getting the best analyzing possible when it's just dry. So hopefully that answers the question. Crazy Official asks, but what if the beat is already mastered? All right, so that is in relation to the mastering vocals and beats in FL Studio, and in that video I was actually mastering vocals that were already mixed to a mastered beat, right? If that makes any sense. So the beat was mastered, and then I remixed vocals on top of it, and then we master it again. So the best way that I can advise everyone to work when they're doing that, I mean, that's the most common way in hip-hop that people are mixing today, is to pretty much just start off the session by doing some gain staging. Now, what does that mean? It means that you want to make sure that you're not at the beginning of the mix hitting at 0 dB on the master track, because that means it's not going to give you any space to actually mix. So my best advice always is to turn everything down by 10 decibels, because that way you're going to have all the space in the world to add a compressor and EQ to your vocals and that kind of thing without maxing out your master bus. So that works for me. Sometimes if you want to work a bit louder, you can drop it by 4 dB and then make the vocals louder so that they match up. But generally I'll just drop everything so that I'm still hearing what the artist was hearing, but now I can actually work with some headroom, and then I'll just make sure at the end of the track to make everything as loud as it was at the beginning, right? So if the beat was hitting at 0 dB while the artist was recording, I'll turn it back up. Say if I turn everything down by 10 dB, I'll turn everything up by, let's say, 8 dB, because now 2 dB would have been lost because we've added vocals onto it. So those are gain staging issues, and definitely consider them. Work your way towards loudness. Don't start off with loud and try and get louder, because you're going to have run out of headroom too quickly. So hopefully that makes sense. It's a bit complicated, but easy to understand once you start doing it that way. Presto Leak asks, so should you mix the vocals before recording ad-libs? So that is actually a damn good question. So when I'm recording tracks, right, I'll always start off by recording the main vocal. I'll record about 4 to 8 bars, let's say, of the main vocal. Then what I'll do is I'll stop for a while, take the headphones off, and then loop that section, and then do a little bit of SSL EQ, and then I'll level the beat as best as I like, and then that'll be my rough mix. So from that point on, I'm going to record the rest of the track as I like. I might add a compressor on the main vocal, I might do a little bit of touch of EQ on the beat, but for the most part I'm not doing a full mix while recording. I love to get my ideas down first, fully assess what I've done, right? Am I really liking this track? Is it worth investing more time into mixing it, or is it not good enough for me to further mix? And then from there on out, what I'll do is I'll start adding my ad-libs, and usually I will add what you usually see in my videos in terms of the ad-lib stuff is usually what I do in my headphones. I usually like to do all the spacey stuff in headphones, because that way I just know it's going to sound nice, and then on the speakers I'll just do a bit of leveling later on. So I wouldn't do too much mixing while recording, because it's really going to distract you from actually recording your song and making sure that the main goal when I'm recording is to make sure that I'm recording a cool song, A, and then B, I'm getting a consistent vocal sound so that I don't have to stress too much later on while mixing it, because as I said before, if there are inconsistencies in where you stand with your microphone, it's going to be really hard to mix. So hopefully that makes sense. Mesa the Kid asks, does it matter what slot I put certain things on? Like, does anything happen if I put my EQ into slot 1 or into slot 10? No, by default, if you have a blank set of slots, right, so you just have your main vocal going through channel 4 and there is no effects going on, it will not make a difference if you put the fully parametric EQ on slot 1 or on slot 10. Now, there will be a difference if you put an EQ before a compressor or after a compressor, right? Those are things that you'll learn over time. That's actually an interesting story now that I think about it. Back when I was interning back in the day, we had done like a live sound event, and the engineer I was working for, interning for, had actually mixed the live show that was being streamed to radio, and I had asked him the same question in the car. I said, does it matter if I put an EQ before or after compressor? And the answer he gave me was, over time you'll start to understand when it's important to add an EQ before a compressor or after a compressor, right? So I'll get a bit in depth into that, and by that I mean, like, for example, if you have a compressor, right, and your vocal is really bassy, the compressor is most likely going to respond more to the bassy sounding vocal. So if you really want to crush your compressor, don't EQ it, right? Or I'll usually do a bit of detailing work before the compressor, do a bit of high passing to get rid of some of the bass, because that way I know my compressor is going to react more so to the things that I want it to compress to, you know what I mean? So I'm cleaning up my vocal a little bit, then I'm compressing, then I'm doing a bit of EQ afterwards, just to kind of tuck away certain frequencies that might have been brought up in level due to the compressor. Point being is that you need to learn when you need to use EQ and when not to use EQ, or when is it better to use EQ, right? So for example, if I do a ad-lib telephone effect, I might add the reverb first and then the EQ that might clean up the reverb, right? Or I might do it vice versa. It really depends on what you want to do. Best advice always is just to try and see what works. So hopefully that makes sense. Toxic Nudge says, what type of beat is this? Alright, so this is for the punk rap guys and girls out there. The beats that I usually look for will be like a Lil Tracy type beat, will be like a little Uzi Vert type beat. Sometimes you can find some cool stuff, definitely some Drippin' So Pretty type beats. There's all sorts of stuff you can find. Juice WRLD type beats are definitely still popular on the internet. I would say those are kind of washed up by now because just of how many they are. Like, even I do Juice WRLD type beats, and it's just like you'll find an endless list. So definitely try to find some of the niche artists out there. Lil Peep type beats are still good, but also those can be quite flooded with, like, not so great beats. But yeah, definitely just look out for the underground stuff. Drippin' So Pretty, Lil Tracy is usually what I'm looking for. So hopefully that helps. Jay Chisaki, I hope I said that right, said, we need a video on that skincare regime. My guy looking clean always. Haha. Nah, I don't know, man. I don't know. In reality, I don't think my skin looks that flat. I think it's just the camera. But this is definitely an important question. The reason I added it last to this video is that for anyone out there who's trying to get is trying to work harder, is really working hard at mixing. For me, the best like thing I ever did was to kind of lay off candy and to lay off well, sugar and candy in general, same thing, but to really just chill on how much of it I consume. I'm not perfect, so I still do eat like a candy bar to a week, but for the most part I've laid off that stuff. Definitely eating more naturally fatty foods, so for example like beef stew with rice, that kind of stuff, more natural meals instead of eating like pizzas and that kind of thing. I don't know, stressing less, going outside more, seeing the sun. I'm inside all day, so I usually this year I've started to kind of go outside more, and it's really been helping like my mental strength as well, in terms of like being able to work more consistently, being able to work faster, because when you're eating a lot of sugar you kind of get distracted by a lot of things, so that's really helped with me. Definitely drinking more water and that kind of thing. But yeah, man, take care of yourself while you're young, and you'll be like looking decent when you're older. I mean, look at Farai, right? So he doesn't really eat too much sugar and stuff like that, and I think he's vegan. I'm not vegan at all, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, man, that was another question and answer. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself, and feel free to tune in next time, man. Make sure to smash like and subscribe. Check out the web store for any presets you might be interested in. I think I'm having a sale this weekend, and yeah, I'll check out soon. Peace out.